Good morning. Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Um, Let me start. First of all, my entire today, apologize for that. Um, I'm standing here with a torn ligament and with a broken ankle, but the more I'm actually happy to be here this week because last week it was not clear whether or not I could get on a plane today. So I'm really happy to be here. But apologies for the shoes and everything. Um, these are the only ones I can actually wear at the moment. Um, I'm, as Vic already mentioned, our Montanuniversität Leoben is the project coordinator in the SUMEX project. So as the coordinator, I will briefly introduce to you um, the SUMEX project, which SUMEX stands for Sustainable Management in Extractive Industries. So it is a Horizon 2020 project, still one of the last ones to actually start as part of Horizon 2020, the old research program that the European Commission is running. We only started in late 2020, in November 2020, right on time with COVID, basically, which very much so influenced the first part of the workshop or the first part of the project, and particularly the workshops. This is only the second physical meeting that we are actually having. Um, and I guess the key reason for the project is raw material demand. That raw material demand is increasing, not just in Europe, but also in Europe. It's increasing globally with the energy transition, with the materials needed for that energy transition. We're moving away from coal, oil, gas. There's another component now coming into this as well, which is very close to your home here, I guess, with Russia and what's happening in the Ukraine. So that we, not just because of climate change reason, now have another reason to get out of oil and gas and into the renewables. But for the renewables, we need metals, for instance. The European Commission is very much so, has been aware of this, and this is where SUMEX comes into the game as well, that we're looking into this additional increased demand for raw materials. But if we were to do this, then how can we actually produce those raw materials in a responsible way, and even going beyond responsibility in a sustainable way? And this is what we are exploring with the SUMEX project. So we want to look into what does sustainable management of the extractive industries, what does sustainability actually mean for the extractive industry in Europe, or what should it mean going forward for the extractive industry in Europe? And then based on this definition, we're trying to find examples of good practice that already exist that can and should be shared across Europe as well, so that we basically raise the bar of the industry with regards to sustainability processes. And as part of how we've done this, actually, we looked at other projects trying to find out what they are doing. We've done these workshops, as Veiko already mentioned, and the one we are doing today in order to talk about practices and define the good practices from this as well. And all of this is then supposed to go into a database, into a repository. It will go live, a first version of that, in the next couple of days. We're just now finalizing that database. And there you can actually find those practices. And the idea being then in the second part of the SUMEX project, to which we will switch later this year, we will disseminate those projects. We will make people aware of those projects, those good practices, is the idea being that then hopefully they will be taken up and shared across Europe, so that we, as I said before, raise the bar for the extractive industry in Europe, so that we can get more, but also more responsible and sustainable mining in the future of Europe to be done here as well. Going into some more detail, I will do that very, very quickly. This definition of sustainability was one of the first things we did in the project. We've looked at the various existing sustainability sustainability standards, projects, etc., that are out there. We considered the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, and in the end came up with what we called the SUMEX Sustainability Framework. I just want to show it on screen, point that out as well. We have two posters here, and one I think is outside, without going into the details, where we describe what we think needs to happen for extractives in Europe in order to be sustainably managed. And it's not something that we can sort of switch on just like this, but we actually described as a sort of a roadmap. It's from now to 2050. So we will actually need 30 years in order to get there. For instance, to get to zero harmful air emissions or carbon neutrality, which is already part of the European requirements anyways. The Commission already wants us to be a carbon neutral continent by 2050. So it's nothing new. We just took that on board as well for the extractives to get there. The challenge obviously now is how do we get there in the next 20, 30 years? And this is where those good practices come into the game that I already mentioned. So we looked at existing European Union projects, other Horizon 2020 projects. We looked at EIT raw materials projects, for instance. We looked at national projects, but also industry practices for examples that actually fit into this sustainability framework where the extractive industry is already on the way. The project setup gave us 5 priority areas, 5 focus areas, as we called them. Land use, landscape planning, environmental planning, very much so focused on social and environmental impact assessment, regional development, and then socioeconomic policy research is part of this as well. And health and safety and permitting actually very much so fits into this as well. The focus areas to which I will get back in just a second of today. The other element, we're looking at 2 specific extractive areas, battery materials. We have a partner in the project, Boliden, a Swedish mining company that very much so is metals focused, some of which are for battery production. And with them, we actually did a deep dive of their situation on the ground when it comes to permitting, when it comes to environmental legislation, regulation, etc., to social aspects and social topics, the areas that I just mentioned before. And the second partner is UEBG, which is the European Aggregates Association. And with them, we did a deep dive in Spain with going to a limestone quarry. Tomorrow, we actually looked at the limestone quarry and what the situation on the ground is for them and how they can actually sort of move towards that sustainability framework that we described as well. As I already mentioned, one of the outputs of this project is going to be this digital toolkit of good practices. The first element of that is a repository, a database of these practices, and hopefully from the workshop today, we can actually add to that repository, to that database, some examples as well. But as I said, the first version of that will go live very soon. The second element of this toolkit is going to be a massive open online course, or a MOOC, which we will hope to have finalized in November this year, and we will run 2 of those courses, first one starting in November, the second one sometimes next year, before the end of the SUMEX project. And then hopefully one of the partners in the project will continue with this massive open online course as well. But that is, again, another chance for you to then be involved and stay involved with the project as well. And we will inform you when those courses run. They are digital online courses where we will talk about focus areas and what we consider as the good practices. So no matter where you sit, whether or not from industry, from civil society, or from government, there will be hopefully something to learn from in this course for all of you as well. And the last element of the project is basically what we're doing today. we want to create and establish what we call community of practice, people who are working in the extractive space and who are interested in sustainability aspects, sustainability elements within the extractives. And as I said before, to raise the bar within the extractive industry when it comes to sustainability going forward. So that's the project. The focus of today is on health and safety, and Veiko already gave an overview of the project, as well as permitting. Health and safety, permitting, those two I already mentioned are two of the 5 focus areas that we have been given within the sustainability space by the European Commission to specifically look into, because the Commission considers these areas as highly important for the extractive industry going forward. The way we now work on these, Veiko already mentioned this, that we're doing those, we've split those focus areas, that we're doing them in regional workshops. Today is the East workshop. Veiko already mentioned the South workshop as still outstanding. And then there will be what we call internally the Bringing It All Together workshop in Brussels in November as part of the Raw Materials Week. So I just want to I ask you to take a mental note already that maybe you want to join us during Raw Materials Week in Brussels as well, where we try and bring all of the project results, all of the workshops, the outcomes of these workshops together, and again, sort of disseminate them and bring them together to the public, basically, and to the participants. For today, health and safety wise, I just put up a couple of questions that we will discuss as part of the panel conversations, as part of the breakouts, the working groups that we will be doing. I don't want to go into the details now, but I just want to sort of bring them up already to get you into the mood of what to expect today, what to focus on, and what will we be working on here. Likewise, for permitting, there's a couple of issues, a couple of points that we wanted to bring up today and discuss with you. Sustainable mining, how does that already fit into permitting? The social license to operate, or the social acceptance of the extractive industries, how does that actually fit into the permitting process? So that's something we want to look into today as well. And then we have a lot of practitioners here today, both from a company side of things as well as, I guess, from a government side of things. What are the challenges on the ground when it comes to permitting, when it comes to considering sustainability within the extractive industries? What do we need to work on? What do we need to focus on? Where do we need to find solutions? So with that said, thank you very much. I'm really glad that you could make it today, and I'm looking forward to some fruitful conversations and discussions today that hopefully are not just fruitful and engaging for us within the project, but also of relevance for you in your daily work. Thank you very much. Veiko.
Thank you, Michael.